Welcome to the What's Our Verdict TV podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts Ian Anderson,
Some shit.
Jay Vinson,
Hey guys.
and today we have a very special guest host, Mason Estep.
How's it going, guys?
All right. Do you guys ever find yourself wondering if you should take the time to set your TiVo to record a show each week, spend the money on that streaming service, or invest hours into binging that show that all your friends are telling you to watch? Well, we're here to answer that question for you. We put TV shows on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. To check out our other episodes, if you're joining us live on Facebook, you can, or if you're on Instagram later, you can head to our website using the link in our bio. If you're on YouTube, the link's in the description down below. You can also listen to us wherever fine podcasts are found: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Ghana, just to name a few. And as always, it's completely free to listen or watch. Today we're reviewing Chapter 16 of The Mandalorian, The Rescue. The night is dark and full of spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't seen this episode, it is time to jump out now and join us on the replay, or check us out on YouTube, or listen on Tuesday when we go live with our podcast. This episode, guys, let's just jump right in, man. This thing starts out just as we expected. They got to pull the team together, and he goes and grabs Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves. A couple things I loved is obviously the big battle that we have between Casca and Boba right out the gate. So Bo's pissed. She's like, "You're no Mandalorian," because I know that voice, and I just love that callback.
So is Boba? So I'm sorry, guys. I need your advice. Is Boba a clone? And if he is, because I kind of know that from Clone Wars, I just watched it. But if he is he the same clone that got eaten in Return of the Jedi?
Great question. And yes, Jay, he is. And that's why he's all scarred up, right? And that's why the armor was all beat.
That's why he has history.
Yes. So he is a clone, but he's different than the other clones. So the clones that were soldiers and were the clone troopers were accelerated growth clones. So they made them adults very quickly. And Jango Fett, when he agreed to be the pattern, or the person that they cloned, he said, the only payment I want is an undoctored clone. And then he raised him as his son. And so
that's the little guy in Clone Wars. Okay.
Yep. So that's him. And then he grows up through. You see him again in the Clone Wars animated show as a child, and then you see him again in Rebels for a minute as kind of a teenage adult, young adult, and then of course you see him in the movie. So, and yes, he is the one that went into the Sarlacc pit in Jedi.
They can make him young now, man. We can do a whole series of a Boba Fett show with a young face now, guys. And by the way, I just want to say, Gorgu for life.
Yes,
you're gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss you, little guy.
I love it. Well, as you can see, I'm rocking the t-shirt too. And then next week, just to give everybody a heads up, when we talk about the investor call stuff, I got another shirt just specially for that one. I just ordered it in. I loved it. So we'll be excited for that one. So I really enjoyed the fact that they called out that, and obviously Bo-Katan was around a lot of clone troopers in the Rebels TV show in the Clone Wars, and so I loved that it was his voice. As soon as she heard him, she's like, "Oh no, you're no freaking Mandalorian, you're a clone." So I really enjoyed that whole sequence. What do you guys think about it?
I thought it was cool, dude. I loved how Boba got like defensive about it, and he was like, this is my dad's armor, and his dad was the rightful ruler of Mandalore at one point in time, which I know that's what Bo's like goal is, right? So I don't know if she's aware of that, if she was just trying to get a dig in, but it certainly hit home. So I enjoyed the exchange. It like seeing the old, like the prequel canon and like the the original trilogy come together it's just a beautiful thing.
Oh, isn't it though?
I thought the best line, and I gotta look it up because I have no idea what was said, but it was basically when the girl, I don't know her name, but the other Mandalorian woman that's not Bo-Katan. And I was a little confused because not knowing all of this, I was like, man, Bo-Katan's kind of a bitch. Like, I don't know if I want her to rule Mandalorian, or Mandalore. But anyways, when she was like, oh, sidekick can't talk. And then he basically said, oh, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black, but in like Star Wars terms? I was like, yeah. And then they just went at it, man. It was I thought, Ian, I thought you would love that more than anything else, because I remember long ago, you're like, I just want to see them team up and do some shit together. And I was like, well, here we go.
Well, and part of the team up, and maybe you guys can answer this because it kind of bugged me the whole episode. But originally there were 3 Mandalorians, and then there was only 2, and I kept thinking, like, where is this guy? Like, did I miss a dialogue piece that said where he was, or?
No, they don't address that at all.
Yep, they don't. And I wondered the same thing. I was like, where's the other Night Owl? But who knows, man? That guy. And I kept thinking maybe he'd pop up later.
Yeah.
They kept him in reserve or something. But yeah, they just never addressed it. But of course, they're always battling, and she's always sending him out. So he may be on a different mission. I just kind of let it go. But I had the same thought. I was like, where's the other dude? Like, why is it?
Not to get too far into it, but do you think maybe they left him out so that there'd be that I mean, it'd be like a second of like, oh, maybe this is the guy in the X-Wing that's coming. You know what I mean?
I definitely think that could have been a thought process, but I think it's one of those things, and I don't want to go too far into the end yet because that's going to create a lot of our conversation. But I think as soon as that X-Wing showed up, especially if you're new to it, like for you, Jay, I could definitely see where you would go, oh, maybe that's the third Mandalorian coming in to.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Guys like me, though, I saw that and I like teared up because I knew exactly what was happening. I got all emotional and shit. Yeah. It was like, no, I know who that is. So, especially when only one. I was like, because the other thing that you think too, and I thought, you know what, a lot of people that aren't familiar with Star Wars, are going to think that's one of the 2 X-Wing guys that we've seen throughout this season, right?
And that too.
Yeah, so I was like, there it is. They're going to think it's those guys coming to help. But yeah, for me, I was just like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So
that was going to be my question to the 2 deep cut guys was, did you know right when you saw it? Because it took me a long time. I even questioned myself halfway through. I was like, no way they're going to do this. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. When it was the single X-Wing, you already knew because he was always going off on his own, you know?
Yep. Especially because they called it out.
Mm-hmm. So one thing about that scene, that fight, that I thought was super cool, that kind of brought to a head like an underlying theme across the Mandalorian, is like what it means to be a Mandalorian. And like for Bo-Katan and Cara Rune, you know, it's different. It's about Mandalore. It's about the group of Mandalorians bringing them together and taking back Mandalore. For Boba, it's about like honor, family, tradition, not tradition, but family and honor. Like, you know, he respected, you know, when he told the Mandalorian, he said, you know, we'll help you get the child. Like he stood by his word. And then for Mando, it's about tradition. He's got those very strict traditions, and you know, he never takes a helmet off. And so I thought it was cool when Cara and Boba both shot their flamethrowers at each other at the same time. It showed like, okay, even though they've all got their different approaches to being a Mandalorian and they wear their armor, at the end of the day, they're still going to try to shoot fire at your face.
Hell yeah. No, I love that. Cool. That's a good point, Mason. I really like that. And I like that that's a kind of a theme too, like you said, throughout the whole show. I like that they've been carrying through that, the different perspectives of each Mandalorian. And then interesting to kind of tie onto that too, because they mentioned 2 episodes ago when you first see Boba in the armor and they show that his code for his dad, that Jango was brought in as a foundling according to now this canon, right? So he's going to have some of the similar beliefs and feelings and raising that, you know, Din Djarin has. That's which I think some of that reason that honor, we finished the job, comes in. Whereas on Bo-Katan, you don't see that at all, especially in like the animated stuff where she spent most of her time and was introduced. She's not that way at all. She's just protect Mandalore, lead Mandalore, and do what's right for Mandalore itself as a whole. So that's a very good point. I like that.
Yeah, that's insane, because honestly now I'm looking back at the whole episode, because they go through it the whole episode. They all have their different motives, one of which we don't find out till way later, but but still for Mando, yeah, it is very much this is the way. And oh my god, when he said the kid's my only priority, I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I loved it. So the next thing we see is they hijack this Imperial shuttle, right? That's carrying Dr. Pershing, because they know they're going to need him to get onto the light cruiser with Gideon. So this scene is subtly probably my second favorite scene in this whole show. And I say that because it does a couple of things. When the captains of this vessel when the one guy takes Pershing hostage, kind of, and he's holding it, and then he has this conversation, right? And this show carries points of view from everyone in the universe, in the galaxy, right? It's not just, it's all about the rebels and it's all about the New Republic. This is something, and it was a nice callback to, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Clerks, old school reference there. But there's a conversation in Clerks by Kevin Smith, and it's just this random out of nowhere conversation where he's like, man, I watched Return of the Jedi the other day. And then he's like, they start talking about Star Wars and the fact that the second Death Star was under construction. So when they blew it up, all of these innocent construction workers were killed during this blow up, right? So, it's really funny scene. If you haven't seen it, at least YouTube it, because it's hilarious. Because then this guy who's eavesdropping on this conversation comes over. He goes, dude, I'm a roofer. He goes, I'm a contractor. He goes, I know what's going on. I turned down a job because I knew this guy was a mobster. He goes, so these guys that were on the Death Star, they knew what they were getting into.
But you know what? You are completely right, because that's also one of my favorite scenes, because from the very beginning, I was like, we never get to see a ship getting taken over from this point of view. Like, we're always the ship taking over another ship. We don't get to watch the ship roll up, everybody get freaked out, Mando bored, hear all the sounds. And that guy, what was funny about him was he was like, I don't got a death wish. Motherfucker, you got a big death wish if you're just going to shit talk Cara Dune until she blows your face away, man. What the fuck were you talking about in the beginning? But it was so good. I love the whole exchange.
Yeah.
I liked it too, because that ship it carries a lot of weight, with I think what it does is it's establishing where Dr. Pershing is in the hierarchy. I mean, this is like precious cargo. The Grogu's not even on the ship. It's just him. He's the precious cargo. So, I mean, previously, who do we see on that? We saw the Emperor, right?
Yeah.
So it's showing in this post Empire world, how important he is, and maybe he has a connection to the Emperor, which is kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah,
that's crazy, because I was wondering, like, why does this ship get the right? It's not a TIE fighter. Why is it going to go into this other ship? You know what I mean? But now that you explain it, that's a fucking great deep cut on their part.
Yeah. Yeah, those Imperial shuttles, they're only ever used for high-ranking officers in the Empire in the original trilogy and throughout. They're a very special ship, so it was really cool to see how they tie that back in. But yeah, I just loved that whole scene. And then they just keep beating on Cara Dune and the whole Alderaan thing. Like, I'm like, man, why would you mess with this woman? Like, and he was so brutal about it. Like he said, he's like, I don't give you. It's a great cost to destroy terrorism. I was like, oh shit, like this is serious right now.
He was like calling her out, like, I see a tear. He was like, you know what else I saw? Your fucking parents die. I was like, whoa, man.
Seriously. Yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, I mean, and I think, like I said, I love that this show doesn't shy away from showing both sides. They did it last episode too, where the Imperial guy, that Valen Hess, when he and Mayfield are talking, like, you see that perspective of they really do believe they're right, and they feel like they're providing, order to the galaxy. So it's very interesting.
It's almost like a Jojo Rabbit of the stormtroopers, basically. But the other thing about that is when they were, I noticed back when in the last episode when they kind of went through that, and I was wondering, one of the things that I noticed was, I was like, and I never do this with films, but the Bechdel test, and the two females that were in the episode, they, every time they were talking about getting either him out or whatever, I was like, fuck, it doesn't pass the Bechdel test or whatever the fuck it is. This one totally made up for that shit, man, because they had the most badass female crew just fucking tearing apart this Emperor, or the fucking ship inside, man. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. That was one of my special notes. I was like, oh, they made up for that.
Absolutely. No, I loved it. And Star Wars, especially since the animated series comes out, has been very female heavy, which is really cool. I really like that strong female characters throughout the Star Wars universe since animated shows and everything following that, including this one. I mean, Cara Dune's a great example of that. Bo-Katan's huge. Casca Reeves, she's great too. So I really like that. Another thing that I love is once they get on this ship, well, right before, sorry, let me back up. Pershing's talking about the Dark Troopers, which just tickled me. And I love that they actually brought both sides of the Dark Troopers into canon, because up to this point, they were leading into just being the droid version, right? So we saw them, they're droids. But then he mentions, they talk about who's in the suit. And he's like, "No, dude, we got rid of the human beings. We got rid of the weakness." So I love that they actually brought in both sides of that. I was worried that they were going to keep the human version, that where it was a biosuit, out of canon, but they brought it in just subtly. So that made me happy. But yeah, then we get on the ship and we see, man, some tension there, right? Because they light up these Dark Troopers. Because let's be honest, Gideon's not stupid. He knows what's going on. Like, he's figured out that this is a setup. So he sends out TIE fighters, and then he's telling them, don't let them in this ship yet. But then they get in anyway, but he lights up, and you can see he lights up these Dark Troopers early, which is why Mando is like, oh shit, right? So the tension there, I was like, God, if they get out, he's screwed. But he only one gets out. What'd you guys think of that fight? I want to hear you guys' thoughts before I jump in. What'd you guys think of Mando versus the Dark Trooper?
I thought it was good. I mean, to a certain extent, when I thought I got a little bit like a joke when he just kept punching him in the face into the wall, and the wall was moving out, which was kind of cool. But it just was and the music was a little off, or the music was kind of it was like a dissonance. It was trying to act like it was like a horror thing. It was his head's not moving. He's fine, Yeah. But I thought it's good to show Mando's not like this, like Mary Sue or whatever, like this, it's kind of his match. Like the Dark Trooper, I mean, is above his level. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, I agree. I like that it wasn't just instant win, some clever, he did it. He got his ass beat for a minute. And if it weren't for the armor, again, this guy's toast.
Right.
Goodness for that Beskar. Yeah, I thought it was that they brought out the spear. Because I never pictured Mando as like a very, hand-to-hand combat type role. He's always using his pistol and all that jazz. So it was kind of interesting to see him fight a little differently and use that Beskar spear he's been carrying around.
Yeah, I was glad to finally see it in action for more than just the weird lady
used it so much. And this, I mean, they did a little bit of a Derrick Henry thing again at the end, but also when we get to, I'll bring it up because I have a big question about Mando's suit in one of the scenes. But you're right, though. The scene, I really liked it. And to get to Ian's point, he kind of exhausted all of his strategies besides the spear before using it. And that came into play later on, which was really great. And I really liked, I was like, wondering how they were going to do that Darksaber fight. And I thought that was pretty cool too. But with the Dark Trooper, man, the score was like, you're right. It was like almost rock and roll a little bit because I had notes that was like, man, the score is not during the Dark Trooper stuff, but during the spoiler, during the Jedi stuff, the music was amazing, dude. When you're watching everything on the screen, I was like, man, this score is killing it. But during that part, it wasn't cool. But yeah, he used his whistling Dixies or whatever they're called, and that was like the gimmick to finally get him to hand-to-hand combat to the spear, which was pretty fucking badass when he did use it. And again, in the fight to come.
And I will say this, I loved that he shot him out of the rest of them out of the airlock. Like after he finally beats the one, I really enjoy because they set you up to think, oh, well, the Dark Troopers are no longer a problem. Now all I need to worry about is, and it got me. I'm not normally tricked by something like that, but I saw it and I was like, what a Star Wars way to get rid of these Dark Troopers, right? Because that is so cool, and especially for this show. So it's really, I bought into it. I thought, well, there goes the Dark Troopers, right? Now it's just Gideon. And then I was leaning into, I can't remember if it was you, Jay, that was asking, or maybe it was you, Ian, that was talking about in a text about maybe Gideon has some Force sensitivity. So in my brain, I'm leaning into going, maybe they're going to show that Gideon's this just Billy Badass, Force sensitive. Used to be, it was Alec. Let me not take away from Alec, our fan Alec Burgess. He's the one that asked me in our comment. So yeah, I thought maybe that was going to be the case, but I really enjoyed that they airlocked him and then brought him back later. But I was like, that's such a Star Wars thing.
That's funny because I was the opposite, where I was like, they shot him out of the airlock, and I was like, there's no way They've built these guys up to be so freaking awesome, but that's all I get to see of the Dark.
I knew Ian was gonna pick up on that because they got me too for a minute. When they came back, I was like, oh yeah, fuck, they can fly, duh. Like,
They don't need to breathe in space.
Yeah. And that's when they came back, like in that moment when they're like, oh, all these things, there's no life forms. I was like, oh, son of a bitch, you're an idiot. Like, I'm like, come on, dude, you know they're droids. They don't need to breathe, and we've already seen them fly. So it's not like, so I had a moment where I was like, oh, that was stupid on my part. But, oh, yeah, I bought in completely. I thought they were done. All right,
that's
so
what
we ready?
man. They're good at it.
Let's talk about Gideon. So I loved this scene. Again, another top tier scene for me was he walks into the cell where Grogu's at, and he's just holding the Darksaber over this dude's head. And I'm like, what a dick. Like,
I know.
he's so brutal. But then this whole conversation that they have, I love because, again, and there's more to it. This is a piece that I want to talk about, and I want to hear you guys' thought on the whole scene. But for me, the part that I love is you 100% see Mando's ready to just cut it all loose. He doesn't give a shit about anybody else in that ship. He's ready to be like, you're good, I'm leaving. Just give me the kid. You can keep the Darksaber. I don't give a shit about any of it. I just want him. And I loved that piece that, look, this dude's our hero, right? Our hero, but he don't care. He just cares about that kid. And I love that part where you see how extreme he's ready to go, and he'll burn anyone for it.
Well, it's like his background, man. Like, like the Mandalorians, I mean, him as a foundling, like, he was saved by these people who had no previous connection, essentially adopted. So for him, that tie is as deep as family can get for him. So that's why, that's why he's so intense about it.
Yeah, my thing with him has always been, this is the way. I feel like that's Mando. Is like, everybody has their other perspectives, and Mando's is just, this is the way, whether it's to have a mask or not. But in the past 2 or 3 episodes, it's been like, okay, Grogu is the way. And now I'm very, very, I mean, I don't want to get too much to it in the end, but I wondered, I'm very concerned about where the story is going to go from here. I am now that you guys have talked about the different perspectives of the Mandalore, I am a little more hopeful than I was before walking into the show, because I was like, well, what the fuck is it going to be now? But now with the title Mandalorian and these different Mandalorian points of view on a bunch of different planets, now, I think they're gonna have a lot to explore. But yeah, absolutely, dude. He was like, fucking take the kid. And when Gideon said, like, I'm done with him, part of me was like, well, is he? Because, like, if you needed his blood, you could have just ended this in episode 1. You know what I mean? And then, like, Baby Yoda's there with his little handcuffs, like, I don't know. It was just, oh man. So when he did that, and he did a very Gus Fring-ish thing, was like, assume I know everything. Yeah. I was like, yeah, fucking assume that, dude. And then when he like flipped it on him, I was like, I half was expecting that to come, because it just didn't make sense why he would, unless he got the mitochondria or whatever off of him and was going to show some force activity. I didn't really see him letting go.
Yeah. No, yeah, they didn't fool me on this one. I knew he was going to double cross it.
Okay.
You can't just they obviously ran out of the blood one time, so they're not going to take a chance on running out of it again.
Right.
Especially because he gives the very not subtle tie into the First Order. Only in my opinion, none of them have said the First Order yet. All they've ever said is order, and we know that Palpatine called it the Final Order.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I'm going to go off into theory land here for a second. So we've already had the drop of Thrawn, right? In episode 14 or whatever it was, we had Thrawn mentioned. I'm not going to lie. This dude, Gideon, strikes me as someone that has studied under Thrawn. Because if you've read the books, especially the new books, the new trilogy, his commanders, those that serve with him, he trains them how to see things the way that he does, which is he sees every detail and he predicts things very well on how people are going to act. And everything that Gideon has done over the last 2 seasons strikes me as this is a guy that's been taught by Thrawn how to anticipate and how to make moves that will win in the end, even when you seem like you're losing, even up to the very end of this episode. You can't, there's no way to, there's certain things, especially when it comes to the Jedi interfering, you can't predict because they just didn't know at that time what was going on. But everything else he was ready for, even down to the point that he knew those dark troopers were coming back. Like he was never worried, right? So I'm wondering if, and I say all that to say that Thrawn and Palpatine had a very close relationship. Thrawn was one of the only people other than Vader to actually have a working relationship with Palpatine. So
like as Palpatine.
Yes. And
okay.
face-to-face conversations, he's not given orders. Like he goes to the palace quite often to speak with Palpatine and does a lot of things for Palpatine directly. So it wouldn't surprise me if this whole Palpatine connection to, the rise of Skywalker, we know the final order is coming. Here we have Gideon, who's worked for Thrawn, who works directly for. It wouldn't shock me if that's the big tie-in, that they all know that this is coming, and they won't say the First Order because they're tied to the final order, not the First Order.
So I think, JJ, I think that's super interesting, that line of thought. I think what would be super cool is if because the backstory from the First Order, we never got it in the sequel trilogy. So how cool would that be if this whole series or one of these new tie-in shows culminates in us getting to see the First Order? Because I think the First Order comes from Palpatine, just like the last order, the final order comes from Palpatine. So the First Order is to maybe have Thrawn come back, or I don't know, or send everybody into the Outer Rim or past the Outer Rim. But also, dude, I think you're right as far as with Thrawn. Even just the ruthlessness of the Imperials has gone up. I mean, just the ability to the readiness to kill themselves. Like the one Imperial when the Mandalorians were raiding his ship, the other Imperial was like, you know what to do, and he's like, all right, yep, boom, and like we didn't see that ever in the original series, or even the prequels, like from so that does smell like Thrawn, and Thrawn. Everyone else is playing checkers. Thrawn's playing chess, just like you said. So.
Absolutely.
I think you're right.
I can prove how you're right because I was wondering why Giancarlo Esposito, why cast Gus Fring, and he never showed I've seen him in other shows be a bad guy. He's kind of along the same lines, and he never really showed. He kind of it's been interesting to watch him because it's like you said, Gideon from the first season. You said he kind of has this grandiose posture about him, which he does. But that's why, because I want to know who they cast as Thrawn, because you get a motherfucker not to keep going back to Breaking Bad, but a person who can anticipate moves like a Gus Fring did, and you get him to be the basically apprentice to somebody even worse. I want to know who the fuck Thrawn's going to be, man. Who are they going to cast for that? That's going to be crazy. But I think you're absolutely on point, and now it makes the Giancarlo Esposito, as little as we've seen him, it makes it so much more than what I previously thought it was.
Yeah. And it's something, just a final thought on that too. Like, they've got Gideon captured. Like, we don't know what's going on, but he's there. They have him. And I'll tell you one thing about Thrawn is he doesn't let his people go lightly. If he has a chance to rescue, if that's the case and they're tied together, would not shock me if some point that's kind of a tie-in where Thrawn comes back for Gideon, because that's a very Thrawn thing to do. All right, you guys ready? I'm getting goosebumps again. Steele. So I won't lie. At this point, the Dark Troopers are back. Everything's feeling not good because it's a lot of Dark Troopers, and they're all trapped in the bridge of the ship. And then this lone X-Wing comes in, and I saw it, and the very first inkling was, oh, look, the New Republic's going to come help. And then it was only one X-Wing, and then they made the comment of, it's just a lone X-Wing, and I lost it. Like, seriously, goosebumps. I teared up a little bit. My stomach starts doing flips, and then you see this hooded figure come out, and I was like, oh my God, they brought Luke into this shit. How did they pull this off? So then I'm just wondering how they're going to do it. And then this whole scene of him coming through the ship, just brutalizing these Dark Troopers like they're nothing. It was so what I've been waiting for 37 years, right? Poor Luke throughout this series has never had, because the technology and the training to get these guys ridiculous lightsaber fighting wasn't there in the original trilogy, so it was based on different fighting style. I've been waiting for Luke to have his moment for as long as I've been alive and watching this series, and this was very reminiscent of Vader's final scene in Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
At that tunnel scene, you see the smoke and the dark. He's this hooded figure just chopping people down. Oh my gosh, dude. I seriously couldn't even handle it. I just was losing my mind on this.
Even the last Dark Trooper, he doesn't cut him. He crushes him.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was fucking a badass use of the Force. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, JJ, what you described, like I messaged everybody, all my Star Wars circles. I was like, have you seen it yet? Have you seen it yet? Like, and they'd be like, oh no, I have. Like, no, you don't understand. I'm immediately watching this again, and like teared up, goosebumps. I got goosebumps when you were talking about it, dude. Yep. Like, I mean, it was everything everybody wanted in the sequel trilogy when we got the original cast back together, but didn't get to see it. We got teased a little bit in Rise of Skywalker with him and Leia, training. But dude, just some quick thoughts. I mean, some analysis I've read about it. Just getting to see him. Yeah, the comparison. If you've seen the video comparison of this versus Vader at the end of Rogue One, awesome, father like son. And then also when you really dive into it, he shows off a lot of different lightsaber forms, which you touched on. Like we didn't get to see it in the original trilogy, and the canon wasn't built yet, but like. I mean, he basically showed some forms from like Yoda has taught him the Yoda form, Obi-Wan's form, but also he showed some Anakin too. When he had a blast coming at him and he went boom, he took it from behind. It was just like Anakin when he was taking down the Federation at the end of 3. So, dude, just incredible. I feel like I think everybody involved with this series just gets it, and like as much shit as we give Kathleen Kennedy, she still is technically in charge. And so, man, my excitement from the end of Rise of Skywalker was here, Yeah. Still, I love Star Wars. I love any Star Wars, okay? I'll take it. But at the end of the Mandalorian season 2, it's just like sky high, dude. And then that investor call, I mean, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
I gotta agree with Mason, because while I'm not at the same level as JJ and Mason when it comes to Star Wars, oh man, have I been waiting to see Luke be the true Luke, like on this new stuff. And man, I like I said, I'm not the level of Star Wars that you guys are, but I absolutely loved seeing him just mow out people.
I think you got to fire Ian.
No, that's my black beans. My black beans are done. So.
Okay. I was like,
live black beans and breaking up shit. I did want to. I'll wait for him to come back bringing up, but yeah, everybody does get it, even from my point of view. Because now that was going to be my topic, was this question. All right, and I kind of had to stray away from it when I brought up the Bechdel test earlier, because I was like, oh shit, I don't want to go into that right now. One is, I think, holy shit, are they just going to explore every point of view in the Star Wars galaxies? Like, are we going to get like, a year or two from now, are we going to get like some show just based on, I don't know, the guy who raised Anakin as like a slave, the little bug guy, you know what I mean? Like at some point they're going to go everywhere they want. But when Luke, and I didn't know it was Luke until basically, okay, so I guessed a little bit when they showed his glove, and that was like halfway through the fight. And then, especially at the end, when you could see him standing there, and I could tell by his height, and then he put once he had his hands up, I was like, shit, it's definitely him. And the CGI was amazing. Like, Marvel's done that once or twice with like Robert Downey Jr. and the original Ant-Man, and like they've been able to de-age them in a way that like Tron, I don't know if you remember Tron, they didn't do a good job at it. But my question was, wouldn't Mando be better suited to handle these fucking dark troopers than just Luke? You know what I mean? Because he's got a saber, which can cut through him, Beskar spear, which can cut through him, and Beskar suit. But now that, I mean, I was completely happy when I saw Luke and I was like, okay, cool. But now that you guys have described not only that there's fighting techniques to lightsabers that I have no idea about, but that this was all just kind of like a build up. I mean, not all of it, but it led into a full on Luke, which I did have to watch a second time. And I was like, because I saw a note online that was like, kind of like saying like, oh, it was a so lightsaber scene. I was like, no, it was pretty fucking badass. And when I watched it again, dude, that's when the score comes in. And yeah, the cameras, you're right. It's just like the fucking Rogue One, which is a great callback. And if you got him fighting like Anakin, like doing callbacks like that, then it's fucking amazing what they did with this.
Well, and I love that Mason brought up the saber styles, because there was one more in there that he only does it one time, but he does Mace Windu's. So he pulls Va'apad, the one where he goes up above his head and drops it into the dark saber and then pulls it back out. That over the head move is a style 7 move. So I was like, and they've hinted and talked about possibly Mace Windu making some sort of appearance, whether he's alive or. So I'm like, dude, that would be sick. But I love, because we've also wondered, at least I have, where did Luke, because there was no way that his training by the end of Return of the Jedi could just be what he got from Obi-Wan in a half a movie and Yoda in a movie, and then like for 5 minutes in the first of another. It just, something else had to have come. And we know that these fighting styles can come from, and it would be great if he's talked to Anakin, right? And Force Ghost form, if he's talked to Obi-Wan since. I mean, even everyone from Qui-Gon to Mace Windu, all of these guys, and we know from the Rise of Skywalker that they're willing to talk to other Jedi, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see that at the end. So how cool would that be if he's still getting his training? And I love, too, that his attitude's a little different in this one. Mm-hmm. Like, he's got that cocky confidence of, I'm the shit. Like, yeah, you're welcome. I just saved your ass. I'm here for the kid, and I'll protect him with I love it. He's like, I'll give my life for the kid, but his gifts without training are nothing. Like, he just had this cocky confidence that you missed in the sequel trilogy, because he's gone through this really shitty thing that he blames himself for a lot of things for. But you didn't get to quite see it, except for a bit of it at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, when he's in Jabba's palace. But the confidence that he exudes, and to a point of almost cockiness, I really, really enjoyed seeing him through that. And Jay, I'm really glad you shared, because I was wondering, from a perspective of someone that's relatively new to the Star Wars universe, what that would be like to see from those eyes. I don't see anything from those eyes anymore. So
yeah.
It's
well,
really
you know what?
fun.
Another perspective that you just kind of gave me by talking about his confidence is because I remember a lot of people hated in the new trilogy that he was this kind of like, I'm done with the Force type of guy. But if you kind of look at him with fresh eyes, it's like, okay, so I would love to go into what made him that. But all of that seems like a life cycle of the Force. It kind of seems like maybe even Yoda probably would have gotten there at some point. Like, you know what? He did. Like, when he talks to him and goes for him, he's like, those are fucking books. I don't give a shit. Like, so it is a process. Like, you go from like truly believing it to using it, and then you kind of like, you got to work your way to I think Luke is the only person that we've ever seen with the Force to go a full life cycle. You know what I mean? Like, everybody always gets cut short or the movie cuts off. But I think now we kind of really see that, and they did pick up on that, on his confidence. And I got to know from the deep cut guys, what the fuck did R2 say to Gorgon or Baby Yoda? They did a whole scene of just beeping, and I was like, what's going on here?
Dude, I think they recognized each other. I think R2 recognized him. So Grogu was a apprentice at the old Jedi Temple, and they said that he had a lot of masters, which, I mean, you typically have one master, so that's interesting there. But I mean, R2 was, R2, I think he recognized him. So I think that's what that was.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's got a friend.
I was going to say, I would agree. He either recognized him, or it was the fact that Yoda, he's so similar to Yoda. Because
Yeah.
I laughed because I was like, to me, I was like, I wanted. Here's what I wanted. So when R2 rolls up, first of all, I peed myself a little because R2 is, as you can, and I'd show you, but my camera's down here. I got this giant R2D2. Like I love R2D2. He's my ringtone. He's all that fun stuff. Anyway.
Even the depressed one from the new trilogy,
Oh,
where he's all depressed.
Like, yeah, I love R2.
Unconditional.
When he comes rolling out, like I was so tickled, and then he freaks out. And what I wanted him to do was like stick out his little robot arm and hand Grogu the flashlight that Yoda tried to steal from him in Empire Strikes Back. Because I thought, like, when he was bouncing and screaming, like I thought in my mind he was telling Luke, "Don't let this asshole steal my flashlight." Shit. But no, I really like the idea of Mason. What you were saying is maybe he knew him because R2 was a fixture in the Jedi Temple and throughout the capital, where we know now that he was there for years and years and years. So it would not surprise me if he knew him. That's a great point.
I read something that was like maybe Anakin saved Grogu when he killed all those kids. Like he intentionally. They got to do a show on Grogu, man, because now everybody wants to know what's happening with this kid, man. But also, let's get into the sad part of it. Grogu is gone from the Mandalorians, guys. He's I don't know what Mando's gonna do. And I loved when he took his mask off. The whole thing was very sad to me. I'm very emotionally tied into, because now, just like Mando, I don't know what to do. What am I gonna do? I have a dark saber and no kid, man. I'll just go fuck the world up, I guess. But like that's how I feel when I'm not with my kid. But he when he took his mask off and he didn't have the mustache, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then that kind of reminded me of this Rick and Morty episode where they're like in like a Mad Max Fury Road thing, and like there's this guy with the fucking helmet that the girl falls in love with, and he never takes it off. And then when he does, he's completely normal looking. He just has a mustache that she doesn't like. And I was like, was that a play? Like, did they reshoot this after the complaints, or did they do this? Like, what happened there? But him saying goodbye was so heartbreaking, man. He was like, he doesn't want to go with you. He's like, no, he's asking your permission. And then he like goes and he's like, all right, man. And he does tell him he's not going to be safe unless he's with me. You know what I mean? So that also made sense to me, instead of just learning. Like, okay, it's kind of like sending your kid to school. It's like, oh no, I like my kid. Maybe I shouldn't send him to fucking school though. It's like, yeah, but they're going to get shot if they don't go. It's like, all right, you win, Luke Skywalker. I'm going to miss him. Grogu. Dude, I got this for my daughter. Grogu for life.
Dude, I think one thing with Star Wars that's come about is like the nobody's ever really gone. And you know what's really never gone? Something that makes a lot of money. So,
so and he said, I will see you again.
Yeah.
This is not the end of Grogu. No chance. We've dove way back into the past of Star Wars. We've never talked about the future. We've got Rey, but Grogu with his with that species and their ability to live 1,000 years plus, it opens up the potential for maybe something in the farther future. And I know they're utilizing Yoda in that way, in that Yoda's in the High Republic, he's still around, and so it's a familiar character. So that's something that's interesting that they can play with.
Yeah. You think Mark Hamill would do a show? By the way, they did a great job at the end of the show. Before we'll get into what's after the show, but when they're just doing the billing. Because I was wondering, I was like, did they hire somebody that looked just fucking like Mark Hamill? And then at the end, it goes so slow. And then it's like, and Mark Hamill. I was like, of course he's in it, man. Why wouldn't he be? But do you think he'd do a show?
Yeah. Well, he voiced for this. Like he actually was on set. The speaking parts were actually Mark Hamill. How they kept it a secret for a year, that's another genius thing about this show. Like I think they release false information just to get people distracted. Because when you listen to what's his face that plays the Mandalorian now, he's like, there was never an issue on set. I'm like, these assholes released this shit because they knew that the news would talk about it and nobody would dig deeper to find out who else was going to be on this show. Because I swear that's what they do.
I was going to ask you, like, was this all just a fucking gimmick? Because we saw so much Mando. Like, I was so happy.
Well, Sasha Banks, she lied flat out too, because she said after her episode 3 or whatever it was, she wasn't in any more of the season And then there she was. That was my first thing. She popped up. I was like, "You liar!" And I was happy that she lied to me. But yeah, it was funny. So it was great that they kept a secret because he was on set. He did the voice, and then they did have a fill-in that looks very similar to him. But there are rumors that they're working to cast for the Luke Skywalker role, and my brain just went blank. But it's the dude that plays the Winter Soldier,
Sebastian.
Dan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you put them side by side, they look a lot alike. Young Hamill.
It's much better casting than what they did with Solo. Solo was just like, who the fuck is this person? Doesn't look any. Another thing is like, with like, I just watched Tenet and it's got Baby Denzel, and it's like, you know what, you would have to cast Harrison Ford's son because nobody has swagger like Denzel and Harrison Ford. You just can't like pretend. But one thing I did want to ask though, because Gideon gets his last shots in, right? Is Bo-Katan dead?
No.
Okay, all right. Just making sure.
No, she's still alive because that's the crux of you want to know what's going to happen next season. And this, I want to talk about this because it actually irritated me. This is the only thing that bothered me. And I know Jon Favreau. I definitely know Dave Filoni will have an answer because this is Dave Filoni's character. He created Bo-Katan. He did Rebels and Clone Wars. So he was the one that had something happen that irritated me. When she would not take the Darksaber by having it given to her, I was like, whoa, what the hell? Because at the end of Rebels, the Mandalorian, it is given to her by a member of the Rebels team.
Right.
And she accepts it and uses it. So there's going to have to be something there that is an answer as to why she's not willing to do it that way again. Mm-hmm. And my guess is that she lost it. So there's a lack of trust. I don't know, but I think you'll see that be a heavy piece of season 3 is this. She wants the Darksaber for one reason. Mando has it. He doesn't necessarily want it, but it's rightfully his. And she needs to now, they've set it up to take it in a course of a battle. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be this real tension between the two of them. So I'm interested to see where they go with that. That's the light at the end of the tunnel with Grogu being maybe off our first season and not coming back for a minute. But, is this battle of these two should be very interesting.
I have one or two deep cut questions about that. So one is, did Bo-Katan lose to Gideon at some point in time? We don't know how that happened. Okay.
No.
Second,
he's not a very good fighter, so I don't know how.
I know, right? Because I was like, damn, man. Because that fight was cool, and I even wrote a note like they savored the saber, but when they did that stretch on the wall, I think I seen that in one other movie, I think. And I was like, man, they really kept that going for a minute because it looked so good. But first of all, I think Mando is better suited to rule Mandalore than Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan seems to me, and even if I got the initial impression wrong because she was pissed off at Boba, she seems like power hungry, and Mando's not, man. But Mando, this is the way. So I feel like without Grogu, take over the planet, Mando. I'm all for it. You know me. I've already said I drank the polar ice. I'm in the fucking cult too, man. I'm right there with you. But I also wondered though, when he did forfeit, I was like, well, couldn't he just? And I was like, well, Mando's never really he's never lost a fight. And is that a Mandalorian thing? Like, if you lose a fight, like you're probably no longer Mandalorian, or at least his cultist phase, because even him submitting didn't work. And I was like, well, can't she like just kick him? And he'd be like, ooh, you beat me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as that go, I think kind of what you're talking about, though, Jay, is something that's really struck me just sitting here listening to you that I didn't think about till just now is what's going to happen when the other children of the Watch find out that he has the Darksaber. Like, I can't imagine that the armorer is going to let that slide, right? Like, she's gone now. Look, Death Watch, if that's where this came from, which is that they've leaned into that being the children of the Watch as Death Watch, they've always wanted to rule. In fact, they had the Darksaber forever and ever. And
didn't
so
they take it from Jango?
They took it from Jango, at least in the EU. In the old canon, they took it from Jango. Well, they stole it originally from the Jedi Temple, and then Jango ended up with it, and then they took it from him. But you also, and this was something that I learned later this year too, or earlier this year, is that the big character in season 1 that Din Djarin fights down by the armor, and they kind of end with their vibro blades, and this is the way. That is actually a direct descendant, voiced by Jon Favreau, of Pre Vizsla. So the guy from Clone Wars that originally brought in the Darksaber, he is a direct descendant of Pre Vizsla. Unless you read the casting notes, like you didn't know that, but he's also voiced by Jon Favreau, who voiced Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars animated series. So I'm like, ooh, now you've got a Vizsla that's ready and is part of a clan that has the Darksaber again. So now, just as you were talking, I was thinking about that, going, man, that's going to open up some very interesting. He's going to be stuck between two factions that he trusts and has been a part of. Oh, it should be interesting. I'm getting more excited about life without Grogu, even thinking about it. Even though I back.
What's it mean to What's it mean to be a Mandalorian and to have Mandalore and where your allegiance is? I mean, this could be the whole new series, and I'm watching it.
Oh, me too.
And all the different hierarchies, like just like you were saying, like Mando, other people.
Yeah.
Well,
then if you ever want to stick around for the post, go ahead, Ian.
I was just gonna say, I'm curious how Mando's gonna interact with this Pride clan now, because he has removed his helmet, and that's gonna cause some rifts. So I'm kind of curious to see how that happens.
Yep. I don't see him automatically being like, bow before me, bitches. Like, I see him being like, what do I do with this thing, guys? He still has to learn the jetpack. Now he's got to learn a fucking saber, too.
Well, and here's the thing, though, is even though he's removed his helmet and that will cause tension, according to Death Watch, and at least the Death Watch of the past that we know through the show and through comics, they're going to see the Darksaber, and there's a good chance they won't care about his helmet now, because he is.
Oh yeah,
Death Watch 100% falls in line with the Darksaber, because we saw Death Watch become part of Darth Maul. They followed Darth Maul willingly because he had the Darksaber.
So that's who I thought came in on the X-wing was Darth Maul.
According to canon, he's dead at this time frame. So
okay,
yeah.
Anyway, spoiler alert! Holy shit!
But now, okay. I just want to pivot a thought here to get to the post-credit scene.
Yes.
What if? Because I do have a question about it. But what if this whole series is over? What if we only had the Mandalorian? And what if that's what these Star Wars seasons are going to be like, where it's just 2 seasons to get us to where we want to be? What if this was all just a lead up to the Book of Boba? Like, what if we don't get a Mandalorian season 3? Like, that would be such a letdown to me personally.
Well, I know we're getting a season 3 because they've announced.
Okay, good.
However, there is an interesting crossover thing here, because season 3, the release date was announced as Christmas 2021, December 2021, and at the Book of Boba, at the end of the cutscene, they said coming December 2021. I have a hard time imagining that they're going to release 2 different shows at the same time. You don't compete with your 2 shows. So is season 3, my question to you guys, is season 3 the Book of Boba? Are they going to give us a break from Din Djarin and that storyline now that we've reached a certain point of view conclusion and we focus on Boba for a season?
Dude, it scares me because I think it might be. And like, so far, the Mandalorian's followed a book format, chapter 1. Chapter 2, it makes sense. And then, dude, I thought the same thing when they said December 2021. I was like, shit, like, is this the end of Jen? Like, man, like, I love this guy. Like, so, I mean, whoo, what a movie.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I was going to say earlier when we were talking about the different points of view, I was like, man, they really named this show perfectly, because I said before, this isn't Grogu, this is the Mandalorian. And so as long as we're following a Mandalorian, like anything can happen. And that makes a lot of sense, because I thought, like, when they showed the 2021 thing, now that I know that that's information to like appetize us into thinking this, it makes much more sense, where I was like, holy fuck, did they just throw in like a promo at the end of the Mandalore? And like, because I still don't know who the fuck he shot. I don't know what any of that was about. I was like, I'm assuming this is fan service, but was it just a promo? But now that I know that it's not, I absolutely agree. I think that we're going to not, because they even said, like, maybe we're going to focus when they had the quote unquote troubles on set. We're going to focus on different characters. Well, yeah, we're going to spend a season with Boba Fett.
Dude, and think about this too. Like, let's say you're watching this for the first time, this whole series, and it's the year 2025, okay? And you're starting from season 1. Star Wars doesn't like do post-credit scenes, like, showing, like the Acolyte that we're talking about, that's coming out. So they're not like promoting another show, I don't think. You know what I mean? If you're going to watch this through and you watch this at the end of the credits, in the future, for continuity, it would make sense if continue watching is going to be the Book of Boba,
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that holds me back from that is they've built so much up with Bo-Katan and Darksaber. They've got to finish that story somehow. So maybe I don't know, maybe we see both of them in this new season. I don't know. But I feel like that's got to be.
The Book of Boba isn't. Yeah, because I completely agree with Ian. Like, that's where I want to stay, is in this lane. Is the Book of Boba something that was announced in the investors call?
No. It was not.
Oh, shit.
So it was new. And so, again, that leans into this isn't a different show. But, Ian, to your point, I'm with you. I want to know more about the Darksaber. But why can't season 4 be the Book of Bo-Katan? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, so now all of a sudden, again, because of all the options, because there's also, and I'm blanking on her name, but from Rebels, that we've already been introduced to Thrawn. There's no reason that we can't be introduced to that more of the Rebels animated show. There was a whole nother Mandalorian character there and one thing that we'll talk about, I know we'll talk about this next week when we talk about the investor call, but at very least, Rangers of the New Republic, which is a new show that they announced, and the Ahsoka show will have a crossover event of some sort with the Mandalorian. So those 3 shows will have a crossover. And to me, that makes sense with Thrawn being this overarching villain that's going to be there. But that gives you an opportunity to tie in a lot of Mandalorian characters that tie into all of these storylines now. So my thought is, and the more we talk about it, the more convinced I am that the Book of Boba is season 3. And it opens up to at least a chance for a Book of Bo-Katan. And honestly, I'm okay with it. The more I think about it too, like I'm disappointed on one hand, but I also – TV shows with me, like the fatigue is real, and Star Wars fatigue is very real because there's so much, and usually it was so pinpointed on one storyline. And so my hope is that Disney's kind of learning a lesson of Star Wars fatigue is real because there's so much. So if you break it up and you completely change the storyline to a different Mandalorian, it gives that refreshing piece of it's something new, and yet that same familiar piece that I love. Kind of why Rogue One to me was so fantastic. It was so different, but it was just familiar enough that it kept me in the Star Wars world. So, yeah, I really think it'll be season 3.
Dude, I don't know about you guys, but I was always jealous of how Marvel was able to do these little shows and movies and then bring it all together. And the fact that we're all sitting here saying we wish there was more, and what JJ's saying, I mean, it absolutely could set us up for our own version of that, which would be, I think, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, although it would be like a little bit like the Avengers, like you'd have to go a year disappointed because you're not going to see Mando. But then next year, you're going to be very happy, very, very happy.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, how happy are you going to be when Din Djarin comes back, right? Or when Grogu's back? Because it's been a year or it's been 2 years. Like that kind of excitement, you can't fake that. So I think it's a great way to create that. As long as they're putting out good content, I'm willing to wait for that to come back. But
so what did Boba do? What happened?
Dude, he shot Bib Fortuna, man. Like
fat Bib Fortuna, dude.
Yeah, exactly. He wasted old man fat Bib Fortuna. So Bib Fortuna was in Return of the Jedi when they go into Jabba's palace, and he was really skinny, and he was like, it was my favorite thing. He's always arguing. He's like, "Ooh, Jabba no bada." It's like that's my favorite line. So when they showed him sitting on that throne, I was like, "Holy shit, that is fantastic!" And then he's trying to talk his way out. He's like, "Boba, I thought you were dead." Just blasts his ass.
Yeah. There's so many rumors. I didn't know.
Yeah, it was so good.
So does Boba rule this world? Is this the world where he got eaten?
Yeah, this is Tatooine. Okay. So you see the dual suns.
Oh, shit.
Which, as soon as they showed the dual suns, I was like, "Oh, we're back on Tatooine." I was like, "This has got to do with Boba."
Jabba's
and then they showed Jabba's palace. I was like, oh shit, what are we doing? And
Oh my gosh.
They show Fat Bib Fortuna, and again, like I teared up a little bit. Like they shrunk the throne because it used to be all big and huge for Jabba, and now it's just little.
Oh, they did.
So
Yeah,
are
I
we
love
going to get a Fat
Twi'lek
Boba?
slave. Yeah, exactly.
Is that the next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got Fat Bib Fortuna and Fat Boba took his place. I love it.
Man, like to me, that was just like fan service, but now I'm
Oh, yeah.
excited. I'm like, holy shit, this is a whole nother storyline they can go on. But to get back to the thing, when I was talking about the Bechtel test, because I honestly didn't want to talk about the end of the show at the beginning of the show. She freed the slave. First of all, she killed all of the people. I don't know how much killing went on. I think we just saw the end scene. I'm sure that Boba did a lot more. But she killed all the people and then she freed the slave. And I was like, this is a very pro female episode. Like I fucking dig it. And then he comes in and he gets that final shot and then just knocks the motherfucker over, sits on the chair, and they're like, da-dun.
Yep. Well, I loved it too because the opening scene when they're first coming in is almost a mirror image as well to Return of the Jedi when Leia comes in as the bounty hunter to save Han. She shoots a couple of them, they fall down those set of stairs, and then she walks in with holding Chewie, and she's like, I got Chewbacca, and he's loving it. So it was almost an exact mirror image coming down those stairs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
So Susan shot, I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, it was beautiful. Like, it was just amazing.
This is the beauty of the show, is that there's like, you can watch it with fresh eyes like me, and then you can also watch it like Ian or like you or like JJ, who has all the deep cuts. You know what I mean? Like, you can watch it on any level and it's good.
That just made me think of a question. What do you think would have happened if Luke showed up and Boba Fett was in that room with them? You know what I'm saying?
I had that same thought, Ian. Like, I was like, it's no wonder they sent Boba away.
Yeah.
Because you can't have those two in the same damn room. Because Boba's going to go after his ass because he sat in the freaking Sarlacc pit for years because of this asshole. So, yeah. I was like, that's a good call. Because
he put on a good show.
Come back. But
you know what? What he did actually brought up a question. I was like, man, you think you can warp somewhere, shoot the ship, warp away, and then do it again over and over again? Like, he took out the TIE fighters pretty easily, and then he could have shot a cannon and just warped away. I was like, that'd be a good way to fight, like, in space.
They do that. And funny that you bring that up, Jay. Thrawn, in the most recent, not the most recent, but the third part of the trilogy, the new trilogy of books that they brought out, Thrawn, he actually uses that technique. They go into the outer regions, and his people called the Chiss, he's helping them in this book. And he has a squadron of these special TIE fighters that you see in the Rebels universe. It's like this wicked the flat panels. There's 3 of them on these things.
Oh, for real? Oh, shit.
And they can travel in hyperspace, which most TIE fighters aren't built for hyperspace, but these ones are. So he uses this squadron, and they come flying in on hyperspace, take pot shots, and then immediately take hyperspace out, and then come back in, because there's an interdictor within this area, which an interdictor will pull you out of hyperspace. So they have to sit on the edge of this interdictor's range, pop in, shoot, pop back out. So it definitely is a tactic that's used, at least by Thrawn, in the canon. So,
like I said, I think like Thrawn does.
I like it. Yeah, just need blue skin and red eyes, and you're on it.
There you go. Halloween.
Exactly. All right, boys, we have talked this thing up. I appreciate you guys. This has been a great ton of fun. Guys, next week, all 4 of us, right? You guys are going to be here next week? Because I know Matt's still on vacation, so Mason, we'll be glad to have you back. Let's talk about the investor call. Let's talk about all the TV shows and the couple of movies that they announced, and talk about theories and some things we're excited about. I think that'll be a great episode. Mason, you got a lot going on. You do a lot of things, man. Why don't you tell everybody that's listening, watching, what it is you do and where they can find you, sir?
Appreciate you, JJ. Yeah, dude, that was so fun, man. I do this in my free time, so I go with all my other boys too. So I love it. So right now I'm opening up my first restaurant with a couple partners. It's called Agape. It's like Chipotle, but it's Mediterranean. JJ, where are you guys all located at?
I'm in Utah. Ian's in Utah. And then Jay, you're
I'm
in
in DC.
DC.
So Jay, are you familiar with Kava?
Yeah, we have them all over the place.
Okay, so we don't have any in Columbus. So it's a similar concept in that category. So first
Nice.
location's opened up on Polaris Parkway, where JJ used to live close to. So we're super excited about that, and we're looking. Our second location's already we just signed our lease, so we'll be on Gahanna in Hamilton Parkway or Hamilton Road. So looking to grow that. It's Eat Agape on Instagram, agapeeats.com. And just come in to Agape, say, Mason, I'll probably just be there. But if I'm not, just say Mason, and we'll hook you up with a free meal. So.
Nice.
By the way, Mason, I was trying to say, I was like, the way I see it, the way Ian sees it. And then I saw your name and I was like, Masonius. I was like, I'm not going to say that. Fuck that. I don't know. By the way, you should Kava, you should introduce Kratom to that region. It's technically not illegal.
Oh yeah. through our restaurant concept?
Yeah.
Kava does it. Kava, you can get it like on the side. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Certain ones, not everyone. It depends on the owner. Certain owners will get you hooked up, and that shit can fuck you. It can mess you up.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Masonius. That's because Mason and I both have a deep love for Sidious.
Yeah. That's right.
We are looking forward to Acolyte, which we'll talk about next week because of the possible implications of what that show could mean. So, both lovers of Palpatine and Sidious. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, boys.
Baby.
Hell yeah. All right, Mason, dude, we appreciate you joining us, man. We look forward to having you on next week. We loved your insights. Guys, this has been a fun season. I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll probably continue on talking about these, and then we've got Marvel shows coming up. So I think with Disney Plus alone, they're going to keep the TV podcast pretty busy. So
you guys should have a Disney Plus channel. Like, what's our verdict? Disney Plus.
Dude, I'm actually working on getting a partnership with them where they'll let us promote Disney Plus. But
can I?
We might swear a little too much for them, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, I could tone that down, believe me. But can I just plug 2 ideas that I might be doing with your help?
Yeah, of course.
Under the What's Our Verdict media. Well, one, I got reached out by Good Pods. I don't know how many people have heard of it yet. It's like a smaller up and coming app where you can follow. For example, Kim Kardashian just signed on, and she has a podcast, and you can follow her. You can see what she's listening to. You can see what your friends are listening to. And it's pretty cool because you can interact with your fan base. Like, I had to claim your What's Our Verdict TV podcast. It was already there. But I know back in the day, even now, like, I'm always looking for good podcasts, and especially when I run out. And so I've been talking to them and do something on that. But for my own shows, I'm a film nerd, so I got to do something with film. But besides that, I was talking to JJ about 2 ideas, one of which was, one is just the craziest fucking stories. That's the other thing I do. If I'm not talking film, I'm talking a crazy ass true story that people are like, you giving me too much information, man. your fucking life's crazy. And I want to interview like friends of mine, like even like, ex-convicts, and just get the fucking wildest shit. And then another one I was thinking about doing was like a Dr. Drew meets Dr. Phil type shit. People call in and then you just mean mug them like Dr. Phil would on a radio show. I got to figure that one out though.
Yeah, so definitely. No, Jay, I love it. And, we've talked. So definitely keep an eye out for, some further What's Our Verdict Media podcast coming down the road, because we are definitely working on growing that brand. And if you have a podcast, you're listening, you want to talk to me about it, feel free to reach out at hosts@whatsourverdict.com. We'd be happy to chat with you about getting to be part of the network and part of the group. So a lot of fun things. Star Wars. I'm so excited for all these shows. We'll keep doing it. We'll keep running it. We'll keep having everybody on. Mason, we'd love to have you join us anytime for Star Wars, Marvel, any of it. So keep the communication open. We'll do it, sir. We'll get Shay on too, and we'll just get an old Discover Geek out going on. I love it.
There we go.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we will catch you next week to talk about the call at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 3:30 Eastern. And we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.